When the Galactic Empire first encountered Earth, they didn't consider it a threat. In their endless expansion across the stars, they had seen hundreds of young civilizations, some proud, some foolish, all eventually conquered. Earth looked no different, a small blue planet on the edge of a forgotten arm of the galaxy, still using chemical rockets, still divided by borders, still dreaming of the stars rather than commanding them. To the Empire, humanity was a primitive curiosity, nothing more. That illusion shattered the moment the Empire declared war. The Empire's fleets descended through the solar system like a storm of fire. Their ships were vast and elegant, powered by technology that bent light itself. They sent a transmission to Earth demanding surrender, expecting immediate compliance. But the humans didn't surrender. Instead, they laughed. Then within weeks, Earth sent a reply that would echo through the stars forever. "We're coming." The message was short, direct, and unnervingly calm. The Empire's admirals watched the decoded signal and assumed it was a bluff. No species could possibly stand against the Imperial Armada. Their enemies usually begged for mercy, long before the first orbital strike. But humans were different. They didn't plead. They prepared. What arrived months later from Earth's launch bays was not what anyone expected. There were no massive fleets of equal strength, no planet-cracking weapons. What the Empire saw instead were small, rough-edged warships, ugly things patched together with steel and stubbornness. They looked like they were held together by hope and insanity. The Imperial tacticians laughed at the sight of them, thinking the battle would be short. It wasn't. When the first human ship entered the atmosphere of the Empire's outer colony world, sensors failed to identify any standard military signature. No shield harmonics, no energy weapons, no retreat codes, just metal and noise. The ship fell through the sky like a burning comet. It didn't even try to land, it crashed. Out of the wreckage came figures in armor made from salvaged parts, faces hidden behind mirrored visors. Their commander didn't issue orders. He gave a single nod and the chaos began. The Empire's soldiers fought by doctrine, perfect formations, synchronized movements, every step calculated. The humans fought like storms. They didn't take cover the way the Empire expected. They used cover as traps, turned wreckage into weapons, and laughed in the middle of explosions. They shouted to each other through gunfire, their voices full of energy, sometimes even joy. The Empire soon learned that humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to break everything that stood against them. Every Imperial commander who survived those first encounters sent desperate reports back to the capital. They couldn't understand how such a primitive species could cause so much damage. The humans had no central coordination, no perfect tactics. Yet every time they were cornered, they adapted. Every time they were wounded, they came back twice as fierce. One general described them as mad creatures who see death and treat it as an old friend. The truth was simpler. Humans had been fighting long before they reached the stars. Their wars had forged them. Their history was filled with stories of soldiers who held lines alone, pilots who flew into storms knowing they would not return, and people who refused to surrender even when the world itself was burning. When Earth finally unified under one flag, those stories became their doctrine. They didn't train soldiers, they trained survivors. The Empire called them Maniacs. The humans wore that title like a badge of honor. In one of the most infamous battles, an entire Imperial battalion surrounded a single human squad on the surface of Caltris 4. The humans had run out of ammunition, food, and medical supplies. The Empire broadcast a message promising them mercy if they surrendered. The humans didn't answer. Instead, they charged. It was madness. A charge against a fully armed battalion with nothing but broken weapons and fists. But somehow they made it work. They fought with anything they could find. Rocks, helmets, even the pieces of their destroyed equipment. By the time the Imperial reinforcements arrived, the battlefield was silent except for the sound of human laughter echoing through the smoke. Not one human had survived, but neither had the battalion. That was the moment the Empire realized this war could not be won by fear. The Emperor himself demanded an explanation. His war council gathered to analyze every recording, every intercepted transmission, every story. One strategist, pale and trembling, said something that haunted the Empire for generations. "They don't fight because they hate us. They fight because they enjoy the challenge." And it was true. For humans, battle wasn't just survival, it was expression. It was the ultimate test of will. The moment when life balanced on the edge of a blade and every heartbeat mattered. The Empire's soldiers were trained to obey. The humans were trained to improvise. One fought through programming, the other through passion. Soon Imperial colonies began to fall one by one, not because humanity outnumbered them, but because humanity terrified them. Entire platoons deserted at the rumor that human forces were nearby. Civilians whispered stories of invisible ghosts who could appear out of nowhere, shouting strange battle cries. Some claimed that humans could turn off pain, others that they didn't even need oxygen. None of it was true, but the fear was. The Empire had created countless enemies in its long reign, but none like this. Every battle turned into a story, and every story spread faster than any fleet. The humans didn't conquer planets for resources. They left messages behind, sometimes burned into the ground, sometimes painted on the walls of ruined bases. The words were always the same: "We're still coming." It wasn't long before the Empire began retreating from entire sectors. Their once proud navy hid behind defense lines that crumbled as soon as human ships appeared. The humans were unpredictable. They would attack from angles that defied logic, using captured ships as decoys, hiding inside asteroids, even dropping entire troop pods through enemy shields. They didn't care about perfection. They cared about victory. At one point, the Empire tried to negotiate. They sent envoys carrying offers of peace and trade. The human fleet commander met them in orbit above a dying star. He listened patiently, then smiled. His words were calm, almost gentle. "We didn't come here for peace. We came because you thought we wouldn't." No one ever saw that envoy again. Years later, when historians tried to document the war, they struggled to explain how Earth, a single small world, had defeated an empire that spanned 1,000 systems. Some said it was because humans were unpredictable. Others said it was because humans had nothing to lose. But the truth written in the silent wreckage of the imperial capital was something else entirely. Humans understood fear, not as weakness, but as fuel. They didn't try to erase it. They embraced it. Every mission, every drop, every desperate stand, they knew fear would come. And they faced it with a grin. One imperial officer, captured after the final battle, described it best. "They look like us," he said, "but when they fight, there's something else. They act like they've been waiting their whole lives for this moment. Like war isn't a curse to them, it's an art." After the Empire fell, the stars went quiet. The surviving species watched humanity carefully, unsure if the maniacs from Earth would turn their fury elsewhere. But humans didn't conquer. They didn't demand tribute. They rebuilt. They sent aid to the very worlds that once fired upon them. To the astonishment of everyone, they treated even their enemies with mercy. When asked why, one human commander gave a simple answer: "We don't fight because we want to destroy. We fight so no one ever thinks they can own us again." That was humanity's secret weapon, their spirit. They didn't seek domination. They sought freedom. They didn't want control over the galaxy. They wanted the right to stand on equal ground. Every scar, every loss, every act of defiance had forged them into something no empire could understand. Years later, children across the former empire would play games pretending to be human soldiers. They would shout the same words heard on battlefields long gone: "Hold the line. We're not done yet. Keep moving." And somewhere on Earth, veterans of that war would sit beneath quiet skies, staring up at the stars they had once fought beneath. They didn't boast. They didn't brag. They simply remembered, because in the end humanity had not just won a war. They had rewritten what it meant to fight one. No empire could ever again look at a small blue planet and see weakness. They would remember the maniacs who came from Earth, the ones who laughed in the face of death, who turned desperation into art, and who proved once and for all that being human was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy.